Our listeners. My name is Rijit Sengupta. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Center for Responsible Business. And we welcome you this afternoon or this morning to this interesting LinkedIn Live session with our friend and our colleague, Martina Van Wilden, Director from the Capitals Coalition. Hi, Martina.
Hi, Richard. Thanks for having me today.
Great. So this LinkedIn Live is part of our preparation and sort of to give you some sort of a very, very quick flavor of things that we are expecting to do at the CRB 10th Annual Sustainability Conference, India and Sustainability Standards, which will be held from the 6th to the 8th of November 2023 at the India Habitat Center in New Delhi. And on the 7th of November, so from 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. India time, we have a session which is being co-hosted by CRB and the Capitals Coalition on valuing nature and people in business strategy and operations. So we are here today to talk about that session. But before we get into the session, I would like to request Martina to maybe quickly introduce yourself and also the work of the Capitals Coalition. But before you do that, Martina, I think just to put this conversation in a particular context, I would like to highlight that it is now absolutely clear to businesses that they don't operate in isolation. They're part of a system, and there are various dependencies and impacts that that businesses has on various components of that system. And leading business sort of leaders and their leadership are already looking at ways in which they can mitigate the risks and also create value as far as those impacts and dependencies are concerned. And therefore integrating considerations relating to non-financial elements like nature, the natural resources, the social element, and the built environment, and so on and so forth, is becoming an extremely important part or a component of business decision making. And that is where the work of the Capitals Coalition is situated, and you will hear more from Martina about the wonderful work that the organization has been doing, including in India. So Martina, if you can kindly introduce yourself and also give a very quick introduction to our listeners about the Capitals Coalition. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Richard. Thank you for this introduction. I'm Martina van Wilde. I'm based in the Netherlands. And as Richard just mentioned, I work for the Capitals Coalition. And we are a global collaboration. And indeed, we're focusing on changing decision-making so that the values provided by nature and people are incorporated in decisions, with the aim, of course, to transform our system and our economic system. And as part of our work, we've been leading the Cheap Agri-Food for Business project since early 2020. So that's a project specifically focused on the agri-food sector, but normally we look much broader, just on decision-making generally, and indeed focusing on business, incentivizing businesses and capacity building in terms of decision-making. And as you mentioned rightfully just earlier, really transforming the system by collaborating also with policy and finance and academics, because we really see that everybody has a place in the system to play in order to change it. So collaboration is really vital to us. So generally we work broadly, globally on decision-making in natural and social and human capital. But for this specific purpose of the CRB conference and the CRB session, we will focus on the Cheap Agri-Food for Business project and the agricultural focus we've been having the past years. And of course, that's a very important sector, especially if we talk about natural capital and social capital as well, because there's so much to change there. I can go into that straight away, or I don't know whether you'd like me to clarify anything.
No, I think Yeah, thanks a lot for that sort of a short introduction about the Capitals Coalition, and you did touch upon the TEEB initiative. So you'll have to probably also expand TEEB and give a little bit of an understanding to the listeners about the TEEB, the TEEB guidelines and its implications or its application really in India, and how you and us, we are looking at that possibility. But just before you get there, maybe also because you brought this up about the sector per se, the agri-food sector, and absolutely, I think the agri-food sector represents an extremely important sector which touches the lives and livelihoods of everybody in this country, and therefore in some way either directly or indirectly, and therefore how the sector evolves and what role the private sector can play in sort of driving those transformations is very, very critical, and a subject of interest to all consumers and every citizen. So this is extremely important, and we hope that the stakeholders also start to look at the possibility of driving their strategy, designing their strategies and driving implementation based on some of these considerations. So Martina, if you can probably tell us a little bit about these the ecosystem, the TEEB guidelines, and how are we going to see its application in India now and in the future. That'll be great. Thanks.
Thank you. So maybe indeed first TEEB, it stands for, and it took me ages to get it right. Let's see if I get it right now. TEEB stands for the Economics of Ecosystems and Biodiversity. And it's an initiative that already started back in 2010 or earlier even. And it's really about incorporating the value of natural capital and social and human capital into decision making. And in 2020, we were appointed by UNEP TEEB, so it's a UN body, to support them in an EU-funded project, a larger EU-funded project that focused on policy specifically in 7 EU partner countries, India being one of them, but China, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, Brazil, and Mexico being the other project countries. So we're really trying to shift policy, and within the Capitals Coalition, we've been asked to focus on businesses and capacity building for businesses and see how we can onboard businesses in order to change their operations as well and their understanding of how they impact and depend on the capitals and what their risks and opportunities are in this space, to really see that there are indeed, by not including the capitals, that there are quite a few risks, but if you do so, there are a lot of opportunities as well. So I think we focused on that, and we started drafting the TEEB operational guidelines for business in 2020. You mentioned those. And we've been piloting those across the 7 partner countries that I just mentioned. We've been running roundtables, but also provided training to business representatives who wanted to join in together with CRB in India. So thank you again very much for all the support provided there. And next to the training sessions that we conducted on these guidelines, we also provided one-to-one support to businesses, so that businesses were able to conduct their own capitals assessments and to see how that impacts them and what kind of value and what kind of value is in it for them, basically, to look at natural and social and human capital and how they can apply that thinking into their decision making and their actions. We had lots of people joining the training sessions, and several businesses, Arvind, Apollo Tires, and Go for Fresh specifically, really advanced on the capitals assessment, and they really had really positive outcomes. I would say during the session, we will hear from Go for Fresh, for instance. So they've been looking into food loss and waste, how they can ensure that there's a decrease in food loss, livelihood improvements for marginal communities, chemical inputs, ensuring that there is less chemical inputs, which of course had a positive effect also on biodiversity and climate. So those are some things that these businesses have been looking into how they can perceive value from that, and how they can also cut costs sometimes by doing better. So I think that's what we're aiming for. And in total, globally, we nearly have 30 pilot applications by businesses, all showing really good results in terms of what natural capital means and how those capitals really support businesses and should be incorporated in decision making.
Great. Yeah, thanks for those details, and also for the listeners online. There are 3 or 4 things which are very important, and that's also sort of drew our attention and sort of attracted CRB into this initiative. One, as you said, Martina, was this uniqueness of this initiative, that this was based in the developing South, and the application was being done across 7 different countries in parts of South America, Latin America, Southeast Asia, and here in India. And therefore there is still, because of the content that has been generated and the experience of the interaction that has been generated, a huge amount of possibility of cross-learning between these countries and the companies. So that's one extremely useful and quite a unique value proposition of the project. The second that we also realized while we were implementing this together with you, and that's why we want this conversation, and not just the conversation but also the actual action to continue, is that we saw that as based on your examples, that the framework could be applied to a wide spectrum of companies. It can be applied to a large company, but also it can be applied to a farmer producer organization or a small enterprise. What really is important is that because of the robustness of the framework and the fact that it creates an opportunity for business decision making based on relevant data, it is also almost like an initiative to sort of convince the leadership about strategizing and taking decisions in a particular way, and also to measure the impact in the future. So these were some sort of features which really drew our attention, and we are very, very happy to have contributed, collaborated and contributed in whatever small way in this in the development of this initiative. But we also want to continue this as an initiative going forward, and therefore we will be sort of reaching out to the businesses and the stakeholders in the next few months with some further initiatives and activities which the businesses can also engage, especially the ones who will be there, hopefully listening in and participating at the conference in the session, to build their capacity, and just for our listeners also online, for their information, Capitals Coalition and CRB have developed something called the Capitals Hub. In India, it's an online sort of link, and a lot of the work that Martina just mentioned now and in the future will be taken forward through the Capitals Hub in India. So So looking
maybe I can also come into in there because I'm very pleased that you will not maybe take over the baton, but I think our collaboration has been so strong that it's really interesting and to see that you now have this interest and this knowledge indeed to build on that on our work and really tailoring it to the Indian context, which I think is really important as well. As you said before, the approach is really versatile and can be applied either to small businesses or larger businesses across the value chain. But of course, there's also always the cultural context. So we're really happy with the collaboration and that that we now have established this Capitals Hub and focusing on the agricultural sector for now. And hopefully also potentially broadening it up.
Absolutely.
I might want to just on also mention the working paper WR India published earlier. And they really demonstrated the hidden values of agri-systems and showed that it's really economically viable to stop with harmful subsidies, for instance. And I also understood that the India Planning Commission is working on a report to reward farmers for their ecosystem services. So I think in that regard, and also in terms of our collaboration, India is really quite ahead of the game in terms of applying natural capital thinking and ecosystem services on the ground, working with farmers. So to me, that's really great to see that these advancements take place. And I think also talking about other countries, I think India is really well placed to pave the way for others.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think as you rightly reminded us and also mentioned that the whole issue of natural capital valuation and ecosystem services has also found place in the G20 T20 communique. As I had mentioned to you, the Think 20, which is really the sort of the brain trust of the G20, in its communique highlights that there is a need to sort of mainstream natural capital valuation and ecosystem services in business decision making. So that really acts not just as a policy sort of a hook, and as you said, being taken forward by Niti Aayog here in India, but also provides that kind of inspiration and motivation to the private sector to see themselves and their role in sort of contributing to this whole transition that is required as far as the capitals are concerned. So it's a great time and the right context also for us to sort of take this partnership forward. And we hope that more and more companies and stakeholders join this whole movement where we can create a groundswell on the importance of natural capital valuation and ecosystem services for businesses in India, in the agro food sector to start with, but then expand it onto other sectors. We are fully convinced that this is something which is very, very important and critical for India, and we hope that more and more organizations and businesses and other partners joins us in this initiative and really set up the movement and take.
And if I may add, Richard, of course, we mentioned natural capital and ecosystem services a lot, but I think from the experience we've had in India and other countries, but also as part of the methodology, we really see that social and human capital are really vital as well, and that challenges related to natural challenges are often also social challenges. So I think it's really important also in the Indian context that
absolutely
that element is also an aspect is also really, really there and seen and perceived, and that we need to value also.
Absolutely, and this is what you've just said is so much in sync with this whole spirit of the national guidelines on responsible business conduct of the Government of India, because we talk about the social, the economic, and the environmental responsibilities of business as being indivisible. So you can't choose a particular silo, and because there is so much of such strong linkage and interdependence between the social and the economic and the environmental elements that you cannot do justice only by looking at the social, or only looking at the natural, or only looking at the economic, which is almost always done, but to look at it as a system. And that's also a very sort of fundamental part of the Capitals Coalition framework, that you look at the entire system and not just as parts of the system. So great. So sorry, you wanted to say something?
No, and in that regard, maybe in terms of the session, I'm quite happy. I'm really pleased actually that Pavan Sukhdev will also join us, and he will talk about the Andhra Pradesh community-based natural farming case study that they've conducted over the past years, and that really also shows these multiple benefits of ecosystem services. So he will talk about that, and also how that links to the rest of the value chain. So
super. Yes, absolutely. We are very, very delighted and most honored that Pavan Sukhdev is able to join us. Such an eminent scholar and a practitioner combined, which is so rare, to share his perspectives. And we also have a number of other practitioners from the private sector, again, at different shapes and sizes. But also what you've done is that you have also been able to invite, and because of technology these days, colleagues from Indonesia and from Brazil. So I think that would be very, very interesting as well, where our colleagues from India will also, in addition to sharing our perspectives, can also learn how this tool has been useful and used by practitioners in Indonesia and in Brazil by companies. So that's really how we are going to do the session. What will make you happy in terms of takeaways from the session? What is it that you are expecting from the session really to be some of the 2 or 3 key takeaways for Capitals Coalition, and also for CRB as we take this movement forward in India?
Of course, I would be really happy if we have a large audience and a lot of audience engagement who on board and are excited about the transformation that we envision, and that many businesses start to take on the capitals assessment based on the session. That would be a great outcome, and that they apply for the next steps that we will be proposing during the session. And I think the session will indeed really show how the capitals assessment can be applied in a practical way. We have Sarang Vaidia, I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, apologies Sarang, from Go for Fresh, explaining how they've applied the capitals approach and their guidelines practically. As I said, very delighted to have Pavan Sukhdev also talking about the Andhra Pradesh case study, and as you mentioned, he's a very distinguished guest and can also put that study in a larger perspective in terms of business.
Yes.
I think the country representatives from Indonesia and Brazil will also indeed shed a light on the G20, how from Indonesia to India to Brazil, where it's heading next, of course. So kind of following and ensuring that
very
the
clever
capital valuation agenda is being progressed and onboarded. And then hopefully we will also have a policy representative still to also talk about the planning commission and plans regarding natural capital valuation. So I think there's a lot in there and a lot to do within, is it 1.5 hours?
Yes.
But I do hope that it shows how natural capital valuation can, and social and human capital valuation can pave the way for a food system transformation.
Absolutely. And and CRB, again, CRB's interest is to sort of demonstrate and convey to our friends from the private sector and other stakeholders that that this engagement is not a transactional, sort of a project-based engagement. It is beyond that. What the project has done is it has created and it has given the sort of the base and the opportunity for us to be aware of this very important and effective tool. and the experiences. And now really the onus is on us to see how we are able to take this forward. And therefore, we are also very, very pleased and extremely honored to be in this partnership and continue to pursue this this whole agenda of creating a movement which takes into consideration the local context, the local realities and the culture of driving and mainstreaming considerations for all the capitals, natural, social, human, built into the business decision making process. So thank you once again, Martina. It has been a pleasure as always speaking to you. If you have any other points for our listeners, any sort of closing remarks, you have it's your time now, and we look forward to welcoming you to India once again, and taking this forward through this partnership.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Maybe just to mention, and well, thanks first of all. I think I said that before for inviting us again to the CRB conference. But indeed, of course, our project has been, at least the part of the project of the coalition, has focused on business engagement. But what we started off with, it's the entire system that needs to change and need to onboard this kind of thinking. So I would really welcome policymakers and financial representatives, consultants as well, because it's a common challenge and a common solution that we need to find. So that would be my last.
Absolutely, great. Yeah, we are looking for this transformative shift. Cannot be done only by businesses. We also need the right enabling environment and all the other actors in the system to be part of this movement. So point very well taken. And CRB will be will continue to take this forward. We know that it's not easy. Businesses have there are too much expectation from businesses, whether domestically or internationally, to sort of to transition into a new regime. And I think it has to be continuous. It will have to be creeping, but those positive changes will happen. So thank you once again, Martina. Great.
Thank you too.
With you. And,
looking forward to see you in person.
And, looking forward to welcoming you to India once again. So take care and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.